Someone did a comparison of like what Taylor Swift's private jet puts out in emissions versus like 100 diesel trucks, and it like wasn't even close. But yeah,
So
um,
what you're saying is you're a Taylor Swift fan, is what? You're a Swiftie?
I was hoping not to say it on camera, but yeah.
What's up, guys? Brandon here. Figure I'd bring you guys a little bit of marketing side, some SEMA side of the industry to you. I have Jake on from FASS. Tell us who you are and where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Jake Hopkins. I'm the marketing director for FASS Fuel Systems and, as of a week ago, FASS Motorsports. My background in the industry is I actually met my boy Brandon here in the lighting side. So when I worked at Diode Dynamics, he and I linked up on a couple SEMA projects, maybe one or two, maybe more. And I've been in the industry off and on since 2018. It feels a lot longer than that, but yeah, it's been about 5 years full time in the industry.
One thing I guess that you can't see, or I should say hear on a podcast, you can't really see on video either. If you've never met Jake, I feel like a munchkin around Jake. I think he's like 6'12" or something, and in the gym, what, 4 or 5 times a day?
Yeah. No, it's funny. Everyone, says that about me because I'm 6'6", but my big brother just turned pro as a bodybuilder, so I'm just chasing him. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, I always feel small around him, so it's one of those height differences. Little old man here feeling like a munchkin around him. So, so how did you get into vehicles? Like what got your blood going about custom vehicles?
Oh man. Oh yeah. All right. So we'll go way back. So most little kids, I assume, I don't have kids, their first words are like the cliche, like mommy, daddy, whatever. I started trying to pick out vehicles. You can ask my parents. I would try to identify like trucks and bulldozers and cars and all this stuff. So it sounds cheesy, but I think I was born with it. And when I was growing up, played sports, little league stuff, never got into it. If a cool car drove by the baseball field, I would miss catches because I was just watching the car. I didn't care. Yeah, exactly. So it's been as far back as I can remember. And growing up, I never thought that I would get to work in the automotive industry because to me that was like, if you like football, that was like going to the NFL. Who gets paid to work with cool cars and trucks? And so I ended up going to school for exercise science, did the personal training thing for a while, and somehow I backed my way into helping out a couple buddies with a startup doing their social media management, just because I had social media, so I knew how to use it, and did that for a few years. And then one thing after another, took some part-time marketing jobs, and then lo and behold, where you and I met, a job opened up to be the social media manager at Diode Dynamics. And it's been all hands on deck ever since. And that was 5 years ago.
Well, if you step back, even 5-10 years ago, social media as a job was not a thing. I mean, people's like, oh, I'm not going to pay you to do social media. And then it became, I guess, when it started taking stuff away from TV and radio and magazines, everything started going social media. So I think you were probably right at that age and that time frame that you stepped into the social media, marketing stuff, that before there's even a such thing as an influencer.
Yeah, you make a really good point. I mean, and it's funny, the social media thing, and you know this as well as anyone. If you're talking, let's just talk specifically about the automotive aftermarket. I mean, you get out of it what you put into it. Make no mistake, right? There's companies that don't even have social media accounts that do tens of $millions a year. 100% true. However, if you're in my position of marketing, you follow the attention. I like to say I'm not loyal to any platform. If print dominates the next 10 years, I'm going to spend all my money on print. If social dominates, I'm going to spend all my money on social. So from my perspective, what our job as marketers is to do is to pay attention to where people's attention is. And that's really all we've tried to do is, for now it's social media. In 5 years, it might be something else.
Well, with you starting in the social media side, how have you seen the social media marketing for companies change over the last, 5 years or whatever?
Oh man, that's a good question. You might have to shut me up. So I think the biggest thing that's happening now is it's twofold. The first part is companies more and more are realizing that when it comes to day to day, TikToks, Reels, short form content, that 3 minutes or less stuff, companies are realizing that it's really what you say and how you're saying it over production value. And I know as somebody that makes world class, images and video, I don't want to step on your toes, but it's funny with the fast stuff, with the social media, TikToks, Reels, and whatnot. A lot of it just comes down to delivering a message, however you do it, that resonates with your audience. And I see a lot of companies, pushing $100,000 media budgets, which is great, and there's a place for it. But I think one of the biggest changes here recently is the companies that just know how to speak to their customers are going to win. And then if they can add the quality on top of that, then they're locked in. Then you're good to go.
I think you have that down pat. So if none of y'all have seen Jake's videos and stuff, he comes across like he's talking to you if you're standing in front of him at a show, but then there's like the videos behind him. I guess you do like the green screen aspect of it or whatever. Yeah. And I learned more knowledge from some of his videos. For example, you posted something the other day about the no mile, low mile page or whatever it was. Yeah. The very next day, the guys that I deal with for all the Meekum stuff I shoot posted a car. There was like a Cobra R and it shared it on that page. I was like, I'd never heard of that page or seen it until awesome. You posted about it. I'm like, well, that's kind of cool. So, like you don't post just fast stuff. You don't post just, your company stuff. You'll post stuff that's scene related, which is super cool.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. And that goes in the weeds. That you said it perfectly on. The other thing that some companies are starting to figure out is customers have a really good BS detector. I think we're on average, people in America are hit with 243 advertisements per day on average, something around there. So if you're making content like to engage with your customers, to build an audience for whatever purpose, if you're trying to make real content, make it for them, make it for the viewer, because if all you're doing is trying to put lipstick on your advertisement, well, people know. You're not fooling anyone. Like, oh, I thought this was a fun video, but turns out it's an ad. People know when it's an ad, so it's okay to make ads. We have to sell stuff. I mean, we make ads all the time. But if it's content, if we're actually trying to be like fun or informative or entertaining, then we just do that. So,
and you'll see through some of your videos, like you have the sales side of it, but then you'll have some like, hey, we're packaging this stuff up and you make it fun. Like it makes it entertaining. And I think that's where the social media marketing stuff for these businesses have to go. Like you have to make it fun for your followers, or they're going to be like, all right, let's on to the next one. I don't want to watch this. But when you have someone like you that has the voice, the look, the sound, the knowledge behind it, you tend to stay on that page longer, which in turn you'll be back because the algorithm's going to say, well, you spent 3 minutes on this reel. We're going to show it to you again.
Yeah. And I, seriously, that coming from you, that means a lot. I appreciate it. It's funny when people bring up, we've been really, really blessed, really lucky to build the following we have on social. So we try to do it justice, right? We try to make it worth their time to watch our stuff or engage with us or whatever. But it's funny, like on TikTok, we started about 3.5 years ago. And we didn't have grand plans for it. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to make this massive, page. And we're small fish by comparison to a lot of pages. But we crossed over 400,000 followers about a month ago. And we were like blown away. We're like, well, this was never the plan. Like we didn't have some scheme in the background. We just wanted to make cool stuff and share it. And it seems to resonate, which is super cool.
So I guess we'll step back. So you said that like when me and you first met, when you was at Diode Dynamics of social media, and you left there and you went a couple different places before where you wound up landing?
Yeah. So Diode Dynamics honestly really taught me a lot of what I know, and just in terms of how to organize marketing, because marketing is like super creative and fun, but if you can support the creativity with data, then you're in a much better position. So learned a lot from them. And then I actually, oddly enough, I went into the tech startup world. They needed some marketing help at a local place in St. Louis. Was there for 6 months. Yeah. Great job. And then the pandemic hit. And it turns out pandemics are not good for investor capital. So they fired 30% of the company in one day over a Zoom call. It was fantastic.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, great company, no hard feelings, and and I'm sure like I said, as good as anyone. If you have real skills and you're passionate, there's always a home for you in the automotive industry. There's always somebody who's going to snap you up.
Well, I know me and you talked some when I left Pepsi after 22 years that, when I was trying to get into the automotive side full time, which had been my side gig for, 20 years. And it's like, I wanted to do it full time. And I know, I bounced some stuff off you because you have a lot of that new fresh, I guess, view on the whole social media thing. So I looked at your view as like, all right, well, you're in it. You know what's needed. Like, will I be able to fit with this? So, I guess that's that whole, the pandemic deal. I dealt with the pandemic deal at Pepsi. Of course, it was the end of the world. I think we were at that point selling the cure for COVID because we didn't take a day off. Like it was, all we did. But I knew I wanted more. So after you got let go from that company, did you just happen to stumble upon FASS?
Yeah, kind of wild, and I don't know where you fall in terms of religious beliefs, but to say it was a God thing is probably fair. I was interviewing with a couple companies in the industry. I had a few different people reach out, which was super cool. Who am I? So I was looking.
You already made a name for yourself, though, and a
yeah, I appreciate that. At the time when I was jobless, I didn't feel like I had a name. I felt like I was just knocking on doors, trying to collect the paycheck. But yeah, no, the automotive industry, took really good care of me. I had 2 or 3 different offers, and I'll condense the story. Basically, I had a few hours to make a decision. It was a Friday, and I had a few hours to make a decision. And the job that I was going to go with was hundreds of miles away from home. And my girlfriend and I, who's now my wife, we had just gotten together at the time. So a couple hours before I was supposed to take this job and sign the contract, the marketing director, who was my boss here at FASS, reached out. I'd never met him. He just knew that I was local and that I worked in the industry before. And he said, "Hey, I need marketing help. Do you know anyone looking?" And 4 years later, here I am.
And I'm a firm believer in things happen for a reason. Like if you would have moved, like you said, hundreds of miles away for another job, like where would you be now? You wouldn't be married to that person. Like it was meant for you to stay there and get that. Like, 'cause I'm a firm believer in that, but
100%.
I don't think I'd seen much from FASS online before you took over. I'm sure they were there, but I think you took that and made it a statement or a staple in the scene there.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been fun. Honestly, all credit to the executive team here. Sorry. The executive team here, when I got hired, and I know this isn't as easy at every company, and certain companies have much stricter guidelines, but I was told, go do marketing, go, whatever you think is best, go do it. So, I mean, there's definitely things that I check with them on, especially with like product launches, the engineering technical aspects. Other than that, my team, we just do what we see fit. And that allows us to move super fast, make a lot of really fun stuff, and just crank out the content. So yeah, it's been fun.
But you're also an enthusiast. It's not like you got out of college for marketing and went in for marketing. Like, I think the enthusiast aspect of that plays a big role in doing what you do, because it's probably never feels like work for you.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Yeah, well, I'm sure it's the same for you. There are days when you're like, man, this feels like a job. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, it's so fun. I mean, I have so many things that I do at work that I feel bad doing because I'm like, this doesn't feel like I should be getting paid.
So tell us about FASS and what that company or the companies plural, I guess, that you work for. What is their role in the modified rides, the automotive aftermarket company?
Yeah, for sure. I will shamelessly product plug.
That's why you're here.
FASS Fuel Systems was founded in 2003. And what we are is people know us for the performance side of diesel, which is super great. We love that community. We are, by third-party data, the leading diesel fuel system and filtration solution for all diesel platforms. So your pickup trucks, race trucks, big rigs, agriculture equipment, farm equipment, construction. If it's fueled by a diesel engine, we pretty much have a filtration and fuel system upgrade for it. And so what we do day to day is continually do engineering. We have an in-house team. We research, one, the effects of the filtration. So improving injection system life, optimizing fuel efficiency, restoring horsepower, sharpening throttle response, all these things that literally just filtering fuel does. It sounds crazy, but it's true. We do that. And then we also develop new products in-house. So we've got full-fledged manufacturing in-house on-site. So that's the fuel system side. And then the FASS
on that aspect, most people would think, you get fuel at the gas station, it's already clean, it's already good to go. So
yeah,
how does that affect the normal day-to-day people that, is it geared more towards the performance stuff, or is it just diesel's just so dirty, like you're prolonging the engine?
Yeah. It's a great question. So diesel fuel's pretty disgusting, actually. According to a research paper published by Caterpillar, of all people, diesel fuel, when it's sitting still stationary, is about 10% air. Now you start to agitate it, heat it up driving down the road, and that 10% becomes who knows. And one of the primary functions of our system is to eliminate that air. And you can physically see it on a bench. When we run a system, you can see the air being returned to the tank. And that air can destroy injectors, delay injection timing, makes it run hotter, produces more soot. That's just air. And then you get into water, which is really common in diesel fuel. And a bad batch of diesel can set you back $6, $8, $10, $12, $15,000 for setting up a new injection system if it gets to the engine. So that's the primary purpose, is just eliminating all the crap from diesel fuel. But you ask about the performance side. So our systems that we build for filtration, the primary purpose is filtration for sure. They can flow enough depending on which one you want. We've got a truck in Canada that dynoed at 3,000 horse, and it stopped at 3,000 because it was spinning on the dyno.
Now, Canada don't have a weird, like, their money, it's still the same horses we have in the U.S.
Canadian horsepower with American horsepower.
So you deal a lot with the performance side of the diesel industry then too.
Yeah, we're super fortunate to be very involved in the performance side. Yeah.
So do y'all have to work a lot with the EPA stuff? Is it just, how does that, when the government comes in, I guess, as a company, you're trying to push the benefits, but the government's trying to shut the whole world down.
Right. No kidding. Right, man. I know the gas side of things is now they're feeling it. Now that the EPA is hopefully kind of done with the diesel industry.
And I heard they're supposed to be coming out with the DPF deal for gas. It's like a gas particulate filter. I heard, so that's going to be on a lot of these, regular gas stuff. Yeah,
it's. I think in the next 2 to 5 years, all gas vehicles will have all the same stuff that new diesels do.
Have you seen any kind of change in or a decline with them pushing all this EV stuff, or have you seen a growth in it?
So, I guess it depends on who you believe. We were discussing this the other day. It seems like the OEMs are starting to scale back, at least right now, on production, just because people aren't buying them. That said, if the government stays heavy-handed and they mandate it, then no matter what's selling, I guess the OEs are going to have to make them.
My view with that, until you can go to a gas station, plug in, walk in, get a drink, a bag of chips, and come back out, unplug it, and go. Personally, I don't see. I'm not going to go sit for an hour at some random mall parking lot. So that's just not what I'm interested in.
I saw somewhere, and I'm probably misquoting it, I saw somewhere that a team drove to the North Pole in an EV, and it took them like 10 months because they had to spend a total of like 3 months charging or something. I'm like, it's cool. It's cool technology, but like, no, thanks.
They're super fast. When I was messing with the Audi stuff, they all compared it to like Tesla speed and that kind of stuff, the way it was crazy fast. But I'm not trying to plug it in everywhere I go. And, I'm not trying to drive to SEMA, and that 32-hour trip takes, 6 days. Like, that's not now I know a lot of these manufacturers, OEM manufacturers, are doing like my truck and my wife's Tahoe are both the 3-liter diesel.
Yeah.
They're doing some of these smaller, I guess, more efficient diesels. How is that size of the diesel market affecting you guys? Like, do you see more of the smaller trucks hitting the markets versus the big boys?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for us, I'll say this: for us, the smaller diesels have not become a big player yet. We're developing solutions for them because the OEs, no matter what
Yeah,
platform you're a fan of, Cummins, PowerStroke, Duramax, there's a lot of room left on the table to improve the fuel system, to improve the filtration. We came out with an eco diesel system a few years ago. Um, it hasn't been a big mover for us. It's been an important system for sure, but for us, just the focus of keeping up with the 3/4 ton and 1 ton trucks, which we're always developing additional products for. Honestly, that's kept our engineering team so busy. We haven't launched as many of the lighter duty solutions as we'd like to, but I'm sure they're coming. The one area that I will note, and some shop owners might feel differently, it doesn't seem like on the smaller stuff, the 3 liters, the Power Strokes, Duramax, stuff like
yeah,
that, the 2.8 that was in the Colorado Canyon, it doesn't seem like the modifications to the engine, to the drivetrain, are as common. Now, just as many guys, it seems like, are lifting, lowering wheels, tires, lights, all that stuff. But it doesn't. Our perception of it has been that the mechanical side hasn't been quite as intense, but that might change.
I agree with that because with my 3-liter Duramax, uh, there's no tune, there's no like you can do the intake, the intercooler, exhaust, you can do all that, and it's not really going to change anything until someone releases that tune that lets that breathe a little better. Which, of course, I guess back to the EPA thing, they try to keep all that shut down. So,
Yeah.
what would you say is your most selling vehicle application that you have?
Oh man. Outside of the commercial space, like the big rig
Yeah, yeah.
trucks,
In our custom vehicle world, what is
in
your
our world,
yeah
yeah, honestly, Duramax. We're really strong among all the platforms. I'm confident to say we're the industry leader across all the platforms. But Duramax is big, big. Especially, it helps that for many, many years the Duramax didn't have a factory lift pump, and our system supplies a lift pump. So now you have positive pressure being fed to the engine. So simply just putting one of our systems on, an earlier Duramax truck. I think they L5P, so 2017 is when they got a factory in tank pump. Um, it solves so many issues on the Duramax simply by just giving it something that didn't come from the factory. Never mind the additional fuel flow, the filtration. Just simply having a lift pump on there is a huge benefit.
yeah. So you said there's other aspects of the company that other than the fuel side. So what else are you dealing with on the marketing side?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we recently launched a company called FASS Motorsports, and what that will be is a portal for. We have a lot of FASS has a lot of dealers, so we have a lot of shops, brick and mortar, e-commerce around the country. And now with FASS Motorsports, we're going to be a resource for all these shops and repair facilities, diesel shops, for everything else, for wheels, tires, lift kits, lights, bumpers, all these things, these third-party brands that
Yeah.
we all use. I mean, you probably know 90% of the brands we use, but now we'll be able to offer them to all of our shops. And there's going to be a retail side to it too, but the focus is going to be um, really opening our catalog to all of our dealers.
And for those listening, when we say fast, we're not saying fast with a T. It's FASS. So someone that's
Yeah.
not familiar with Jake and the company and stuff, it's FASS, not fast. Don't let my southern accent throw you off and think I'm saying he's fast.
I was gonna say, yeah, I've got here just in case the camera needs it. There you go. Yeah,
So
there it
what
is.
does fast stand for?
Yeah, FAST stands for Fuel Air Separation System. So it just goes back to the original intent, just cleaning that diesel fuel. And it's funny, people are kind of skeptical when they hear what clean fuel can do as far as all these benefits. And then you take a guy who's been driving the same truck for 5 years, and you put some proper filtration on it, and 9 times out of 10, he gets out of the truck after driving and he goes, "Oh, now I get it."
Yeah.
It's pretty fun.
So on top of the marketing side of the stuff you did for Diode, now you do for FASS, uh, you were pretty heavily involved with some SEMA stuff, correct?
Yeah, for a long time.
So what did you do with SEMA, and how did you get into that?
Yeah. So I blame Nick over at Morimoto or Driven Lighting Group now
Who used to
for
also be at Diode Dynamics.
yeah. He got me going really. So with SEMA, a lot of people know obviously SEMA show, big event in Vegas every year.
But a
SEMA,
lot of the enthusiasts see it as a big car show, but for us in the industry, it's not. It's a trade show. There just happens to be a bunch of cool vehicles there. So
right,
it's not like you can just drive across country, go sit at SEMA and show. So it's
right.
for the industry. So what did you do with the SEMA side of things in the industry?
Yeah, so for SEMA, I was on one of their volunteer networks. So I basically just said, hey, if SEMA needs help with anything, in my free time, I'll do it. And they tasked me with doing some of their social media management, uh, kind of advising them on the social media side.
Oh wow.
And it was really only a few hours a week, but it was really neat in that by volunteering to help SEMA, which is a big organization, I connected with hundreds of like-minded professionals and people that were doing the same thing. So on the outside, I was helping SEMA. In reality, I was also growing and learning and meeting all these new people. So it was really cool.
For SEMA to step in and say they want you to do that for them, that should solidify where your place is in the that market, because SEMA is not just going to randomly pick some Joe Blow to help with their marketing stuff.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it was very surreal as a kid who watched TV shows about SEMA as a kid, thinking, man, I'll never get to go there, but that looks cool. To all of a sudden be talking to their executive board, man, it was very surreal.
You were on a council or two, or what was your?
Yeah. So SEMA. So if someone is working in the automotive industry and they want to volunteer to work with SEMA or for SEMA, you basically pick out one or more of. I think there's 5 or 6 councils, and each council of volunteers has a dedicated purpose. So one is like the Wheel and Tire Council. The other might be um, the Off Road Accessory Council, so on. I was on the Young Professionals Council, or Future Leaders Network is what we were
The
called.
FLN, yeah.
Yeah. So our entire purpose was networking, professional development, creating relationships within the industry to make it better.
How are you still doing that, or how long did you mess with that?
So I had to. It makes me sad. I had to step away from my active role. I'm still on the committee, but I'm no longer one of the primary members with everything going on in this building. I just wasn't giving it the time of day, and I started to miss Zoom calls that I was supposed to be leading. And I was like, okay, at least for a little while, I'm going to step back, let someone else take the reins. But I hope to be back one day.
So for someone in your position, how would you guide the younger generation, or even us old folks like me that are trying to get into the automotive industry? That, like you said, we grew up, we watched it on TV, we saw how everything worked, got hooked on vehicles. How do you get into working for a company or for SEMA? Like, what would you give pointers to someone trying?
Yeah. First and foremost, start looking start looking within your geographic comfort zone, I should say. You might be surprised at how many automotive aftermarket companies are within commuting distance, which is what happened to me. I wasn't aiming to work in the automotive aftermarket. I just got lucky and found Diode was 20 miles from me. So once you've determined where you might be comfortable working, start looking up the companies in that area. I mean, SEMA even has a job board where a lot, not all, but a lot of companies will post their openings. And if I said it before, I'll say it again. If someone has actual hard skills like photography, videography, or computer coding, or even customer service, this industry is so hungry for people that can combine hard skills with passion. Because you can hire hard skills anytime. Just find a college graduate, find an intern, find whoever.
Yeah.
You can find the resume you need. What companies in our industry cannot find enough of is people who really care about this industry.
And that's one thing that I guess my life has revolved around. It's always modified vehicles. It's always, whether it's bikes, cars, trucks, whatever. Like that's what's driven me. So I've always been passionate about it. But I know there's people in the industry that are, and you can tell those are the ones that lean against vehicles at SEMA or pile in somebody's seat. Like you can tell they're there just for a job, but you can tell an enthusiast when you see an enthusiast.
100%. Yeah,
And go
we
ahead.
can spot an imposter from 20 miles away.
Oh yeah, and I've been one of those ones that's had a guy leaning on my truck that went viral. That it's like, oh, we're just leaning here in the lobby at SEMA on someone's truck with his Wranglers with his little rivets in his pockets. But I think that there is so many people in the industry that are just there for the job. But I feel if someone is a true enthusiast, though, that it does stand out. Like you watch your videos, you can tell you're passionate about what you're talking about. You're not just plugging a number and hoping for clicks. Like you actually, same thing on my end. I'm passionate about it. I make it a point to push that.
Yeah. You're exactly right. I don't think I could have said it better. Case in point, I actually had interviews last week for a position here at FASS. One of the guys we interviewed on a technical level wasn't quite what we needed, but he was so passionate. He was so into what we did. And he clearly, based on how we could tell he spent his money, he was one of us. And I followed up with him and I said, hey man, I can't hire you for this, but I'm going to try to find a spot for you because I know how hard it is to find somebody who give them a broom, give them a computer, give them whatever, just let them work around cool stuff. And so we're always looking for that type of mentality.
I seen somebody post something earlier, say with Valentine's Day coming up, this is where you can make your choices, whether you're going to have, changing diapers in 9 months, you're going to be building cars. And it's like, you would probably be cheaper doing the kid role than messing with these vehicles because none of this stuff is cheap. And it's no matter what, you're a diesel lifted, bag stuff, import, like none of it's cheap. Like we work to afford vehicles and we just kind of eat when we can, I guess.
Amen. Yeah, it's funny, you bring up a really good point about the passion thing and, getting into this industry as far as a career goes. And I think, like you said about spotting someone who works in the industry but doesn't love the industry, you can tell because some companies, their marketing is they're trying to justify it. They're trying to make it a logical purchase decision to get a set of wheels or a bumper. And it's like, what? I understand that approach. And there is room for data. There is room for logic, right? But at the end of the day, this isn't a logical industry. This is because we love it. I mean, automotive repair, yeah, probably, justifiable, but the aftermarket, the accessories, this is because it's fun.
We're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So where do you, since you're heavily in the diesel world, where do you see the diesel world, the diesel aftermarket industry going from this point forward? Like, where do you see it in 5-10 years?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question and a scary one. So as of 2024, the EPA pulled emissions to feed devices off their list of NECIs or their compliance initiatives. So we were hoping, even though all of our products here at FASS are all CARB compliant, we make nothing that, honestly, everything we make improves emissions output. But we want to see the industry do well. So to answer your question, it doesn't look like the government's letting off, even though the EPA says they are. It seems like they've just passed enforcement off to the Department of Justice. So now instead of a fine, you get a sentence, which is great.
But you can have cargo ships and jets that burn way more fuel than any diesel on the road.
Yeah. Someone did a comparison of like what Taylor Swift's private jet puts out in emissions versus like 100 diesel trucks, and it like wasn't even close. But yeah.
So what you're saying is you're a Taylor Swift fan, is what? You're a Swiftie?
I was hoping not to say it on camera, but yes, no.
I mean, I can delete this out if I need to.
I don't think I could quote one of her songs if I tried. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, on the one hand, the emissions off stuff that the EPA has been pursuing, it's not stopping. Turns out making things illegal doesn't make them go away. Who knew? As far as the future publicly, I think emissions on performance is going to grow. So many more and more people are not in a place or they can't find a shop or they don't have a mechanic who will remove emissions equipment. So the options for emissions compliant tuning and engine upgrades and drop-in turbos and all this stuff, it's growing by the day. People are really getting into it, which is super cool. And then on the other side, there's that gray area of converting trucks into full-fledged race vehicles. And I don't mean a street truck that you identify as a race truck.
You
I
mean
mean
what you
like
tow
actual,
to the track and or the dyno and
right. Yeah, stuff that doesn't even have a VIN tag on it. That seems to be doing really, really well. If anything, the diesel industry um, seems bigger now than it has ever been, surprisingly.
I know any of the diesel events I've gone to where they've got the mobile dyno set up, there's 3,000 people surrounding the dyno, and I'm like back ducking behind the big dude, like, all right, when this thing blows up, I'm not going
Yeah,
to be up front with you, but the
yeah,
crowd stays there all day long.
it's wild. Yeah, I mean, these guys are making. I think Justin Ziegler just set the record. He made just over 3,300 horsepower to the tire on a 6.7 Cummins. And it was I mean, obviously crazy modified to the moon, but
But
yeah,
you
diesel
couldn't get in
performance
that
is,
and drive it. That's what people's like, oh, I want all
yeah,
this horsepower. You couldn't get in that and drive it to the store if you tried.
100%. And what's crazy is, you look back 10, 15 years ago and making 600 to the tire on a daily driven truck was like mind blowing. There's probably, I could tell you 10 guys off the top of my head that can break 1,000 and drive their truck every day if they want to. Now, like, there definitely comes a point when you're never going to drive that truck every
Yeah.
day. You're going to ruin it in terms of functional day-to-day use. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of guys out there making 2,500 horsepower. It's wild.
And that goes the same thing whether you're into the modifying the suspension or something. You're not gonna blow a vehicle apart and powder coat and paint and chrome everything and drive it every day. I mean, people do it, but
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm not.
right. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, yeah. What you've I guess you went to shows and stuff before you started working on or for these companies. Like
Mhm.
you spent weekends at car shows.
I did a lot of the local stuff. Yeah. I was in my early 20, all the way through like my early 20s. I was just a very, very much a broke like millennial. So I did all the local cars and coffees and a couple shows around St. Louis. And then once I got into the industry and I had somebody paying me to go, I did every show I could possibly go to.
What would you say is the best and worst aspects of the custom vehicle world?
Um,
Like
best aspect,
from seeing how the shows work, like
yeah.
as an enthusiast, what would you say? Not so much as Jake the marketing guy, but as a enthusiast, what would you say would be one of the best and one of the worst aspects or trends that's going on?
Yeah, that's an easy answer. Best aspect is the community. I mean,
For sure.
I don't care what, slam trucks, lifted trucks, imports, muscle cars, the community around this, we're all just here because we love it. And
You
so
you break down the side of the road in a custom vehicle, someone in that world is going to stop and help you.
100%. Yeah. And the people I've met in this industry are some of the closest friends I have. That's the good side. The bad, I would say, especially as it relates to shows, is the lack of understanding when it comes to a show in a whatever city, name a city. The fact that we are all there as representatives of this industry, and the people who live there and the cops and the people that work in that town, they don't know the difference. And so when a lot of these shows get shut down because you leave and you go take over a parking lot with 500 of your buddies and do burnouts till 3 in the morning, it makes really cool social media content. And then that show's never allowed to come back
Yep.
ever again. And that, I get it. I've been a part of it. I've done the 3 a.m. parking lot thing before. I'm not judging, but it literally ruins shows. It will eliminate that show from being possible ever again. So
Because the
it's just
town don't
something
want
to
to
think
deal with
about.
the liability of it.
Yeah. Yeah. All it takes is for the police chief to say, nope, never again. And then that show's done forever.
I've gone to shows for 30 years this year, and I've seen several shows that's why they shut down. Many nights when it was in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, like that was massive, but they were doing burnouts and drinking beer to church parking lot, and the mayor or whatever it was showed up that next morning to go to church, and the parking lot was trash, and they said, "Yep, we're not doing this again." So
Yeah.
it happened. So how do the listeners find you, company wise, personal wise? How do they find you online if they want to watch some of these cool videos and stuff that you produce?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. If for any reason you want to see more of my face on the internet, you can find us at FASS Fuel Systems on all the platforms. My personal stuff is Big Fast, FAST, Big Fast Jake. That's where I Talk a lot about diesels, but a lot about everything else, cars, bikes, all of it. I'm kind of scatterbrained when it comes to being addicted to vehicles.
I think we all are because it's let me look at this, and something else will pull in, or you'll see something else beside it that you're like, oh, that's not my style, but let me check it out. Oh, that's cool. They've got this amount of
Yeah,
work into it. Squirrel.
100%. Yeah, it's funny, and it's so funny we're talking because my first car magazine ever was, I think it was the April 2011 issue of Truckin' Magazine, and I flipped through it till it literally disintegrated in my hands. But that's what helped get me into lowered trucks.
And how
Was
old were you then?
I would have been no, it was 2001, not 2011. My gosh, so I was 11 years old.
See, 2001 was when I first started shooting for print magazines. Actually, trucking was my first cover I ever had was trucking.
That's
And
awesome.
at the time that was February. I lose track there. February 05, got it hanging in my office here. February 05 was the first cover I had. That I thought that was the end of the world. Like this is it.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
can't
that's
go any
peak
higher.
career.
It's like
Yeah,
now number 46 is getting ready to get printed, and I've got a couple more already like in queue ready to go to print. It's like I never knew when I started doing this I would be doing it this long. I thought it'd be a fad and run out, but it makes me try harder every day to up what I did the day before.
yeah. I've dabbled in photography, and every time I think I see a good picture of mine, I come across one of yours, and I'm like, man,
Oh, there's I'm nowhere near in the top 1,000 probably in the country in this scene. Like I can name people that I look up to, and those are the guys
yeah,
that I try to have freelance for me at this point. To like, I need your work. You're that good. And I mean,
yeah,
it's which makes me try harder because I see their stuff. I'm like, well, how did they do that? And I try to break it down as a photographer. I'm like, all right, well, there's a light here. I can tell the
yeah,
sun's there, but that
yeah,
makes it the fun part of it for me is figuring out how they shoot. But I can also look at a lot of automotive photographers' photos. It's in the truck world. Tell
yeah.
you who shot it before I even see the name to it. Like everyone has their own style.
Yeah. I could see that. I think for me, not to get in the weeds, because I'm not going to debate photography with you because I have no business. But for me, it's been a lesson of learning when to stop editing. Because like if I knew 5% of what you know about photography, I'm doing great. But in the past couple of years, like I used to over edit everything. Like everything got texture turned up to the max and clarity turned up to the max and sharpness turned up to the max. And I was like, this looks terrible. I wonder what I'm doing wrong.
The guys that taught me back years ago that kind of took me under their wing, there wasn't as much. I mean, yeah, there was editing stuff back in, '01, '02, but not like there is now. I mean, you can almost have AI edit a photo for you and it's like crazy. But
Yeah.
I learned to shoot like I was like that's picture straight out of the camera was going to print. I mean,
Oh
many
wow.
editors didn't want us to even edit anything until I don't know, last 10 years or so.
Wow. I had
I
no
mean,
idea.
they wanted raw photos because they had an art department. The art guy would edit it, and he'd put his spin on it. They didn't want a bunch of half edited photos. Now, if I have someone submit something that's not edited, I'm like, can you edit that? Like that's super easy now.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I had no idea.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. Back in the day, we would have to burn pictures on a CD and mail a CD into an editor to get it to run it. Now it's here's the link to the Google Drive, drop the photos in here, it's ready to go. So I'd like to see. I like to have back the money I spent on mailing features to magazines over the years because it's a Manila envelope with contact sheets and one or two CDs in it. Like it wasn't just a stamp; it was a couple bucks here and there. So.
Yeah. Super manual process.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Like I said, trying to get a little bit of every aspect of our community, and you've
Yeah.
definitely had your hand in some big stuff in the community. So I
Yeah. No,
appreciate you
thanks for
coming
having me,
on.
man. Super flattered to be in the lineup. So I hope I said something that was helpful to somebody.
I think the Taylor Swift thing was the thing people will take away from this. So you should feel
Yeah,
proud.
that's really more to do with my identity than anything else.
All right. Well, thanks, Jake.
All right, Brandon. Thank you.